Let us go to introducing to you the speakers for today as part of the panel. We are really pleased to have Andre here, who's the CEO and founder of LeanIX, who will do an introduction as kind of setting the scene and as the stage for the conversation for today. I'm also pleased to have Henk Kolk, CIO, responsible for architecture innovation at Nationale Nederlanden. And we have both Davor and Emmanuel on behalf of Leaseplan. And they will be not mutually presenting. Emmanuel Rutte will be the presenter, or at least taking part in the panelists, and Davor will be available upon request. But I'm really glad that you could both join today. During the first half an hour when we do this, and for people that have attended this session before, you notice the first half an hour we're also going to bring in some poll questions. So you're going to be asked to participate. We have prepared those questions, and we appreciate if you can share your inputs there. And later on in the breakouts, we're also going to have a bit of time on spending on doing mutual introduction and also discussion around the specific dilemma we prepared. But that's all, let's say, in more or less half an hour from now. Without further ado, I would like to stop sharing my screen, bring up my notes on the other screen. I will be a lousy pilot because I got too much stuff going on here. And then, okay, I'm gonna. I think I lost the screen. Cool. Let me. Sorry, guys, bear with me 1 second. Yes, here I am. So today's topic. Increasing complexity and continuous transformation, call for an agile and resilient EA practice. And on that specific topic, I'm really glad to invite Andre to kick off the conversation, give us a bit of perspective on his view on the world globally, but also potentially also a bit more local. Andre, glad for that you could join us today. You're the founder and CEO of LeanIX. We'll get to a more deeper introduction of LeanIX at the end of today's session. I would appreciate if you can take the audience a bit through kind of an introduction on this topic, because it's not just enterprise architecture today. There's more to it. So can I hand over the mic to you, and you kind of guide us through kind of today's topic a bit?
Yeah, sure. Many thanks for the kind introduction, and welcome to everyone here from my side. So it's a pleasure to co-host this event here and also engage later on a bit in the discussion with all of you. What I would like to do is, in order to set a bit the scene, share with you some of the core beliefs we have. So a little bit independent from the software product we have, but more on what we as a company believe in. And I hope that there are the one or the other points in there which create some discussion in this group, or allow us to go deeper and understand how some of the practitioners here in the group also see that. So if you allow me sharing my screen just real quick, which I think I can. So I'd like to start with a few key beliefs we have as a company, and explain a bit what's behind that. So let me start with the first one. We believe that organizations right now need to become much more data-driven in order to continuously transform. So what's behind that? So what we see is that the speed at which enterprises actually are transforming, that keeps increasing a lot. And so many organizations now organize themselves much more around products rather than thinking in a project mindset, which means it's no longer you look at the as is, you look at the to be in maybe like 12 or 18 months, and this is the new normal, but it's rather a continuous journey to improve, such as you're building a product. You need to get that product better every day. And we believe in order to do that, you need to have information about your landscape all the time, about your capabilities, about the architecture, so that you are not having always those jumps from now you have a project coming up, now you need to do an assessment to understand where you want to go in a couple of years from now, but rather be prepared all the time. So this is where our term continuously transform comes from. And we see a couple of events, transformation events going on in our customer base, but also in the industry. First of all, IT modernization, moving from legacy landscapes to modern architectures, sometimes microservices, sometimes cloud-based. Overall a shift from more monolithic landscapes to more fine granular landscapes. The second point, which we see as a transformation event, is shifting workloads into the cloud. So using the opportunity to use scalable cloud services, standardized cloud services, and get rid of own data centers. Another transformation initiative we see at the moment is many organizations using the SAP S/4HANA upgrade as an event to rethink their processes. So they do not see that as a very IT-centric exercise, but rather a real transformation, how they set up their processes. And last but not least, as an event, we see post-merger driving the need to actually become much more data-driven, because you need to have a good understanding in all phases of the M&A. So in the due diligence, in the execution of the deal, and then in the post-merger. So that's the first key belief we have, where we believe enterprise architecture can play a big role. The second is to prioritize IT investments by customer experience. We see that literally every company will become a technology company. And this means it's important to focus on optimizing IT by business capabilities and customer journeys. And some companies do this, for example, by leveraging the PACE layer strategy. So you see a little bit depicted here on the right-hand side, and I'm zooming in a bit here, what this really means. So applying the PACE layer strategy means understanding which capabilities in the business are innovative or innovation capabilities, which of those are differentiating capabilities, and what are the capabilities which are commodity. And from there, organizations then derive the proper IT strategy. So, for example, where there's commodity, there should be a strong push for standardization and efficiency. Where there's differentiation, there should be unique processes. Where there's innovation, there's a high likelihood that custom developed solutions are better fitting than something off the shelf. So that's one way of breaking down like what it means to prioritize IT investments, like by customer experience, and then, for example, leveraging the PACE layer strategy to translate this into the architecture. The third point, which we see as a key topic, is to adopt cloud native with speed and control. What we all see, of course, is a rapid enterprise adoption of software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. The big challenge, though, is that in an enterprise context, it's important to balance the governance, which means efficiency, security, compliance, with the needs of a DevSecOps organization. So if you put in a lot of traditional governance, a lot of hurdles to leverage cloud native technologies and services, then it will be less and less appealing for a DevOps organization. And that's why a good balance of those two forces are needed to actually use that. So these are kind of the key beliefs which we see, which influence how an enterprise architecture should and can be set up. So, but I would happily give it back to you to see, like, if you believe these are the right key beliefs, if you see others in there, maybe that's an opportunity to start a discussion later.
Thank you very much, Andre. So a question to you before I introduce Emmanuel from LeanIX. So do you, I mean, this is obviously clearly kind of the way how you look at the global world. Is there something as regional differences you can reckon between, for instance, what the US versus Europe, or even within Europe?
Yeah, look,
or is it industry related, perhaps?
Yeah, look, I mean, what we clearly see, to give you some demographics, today LeanIX has more than 550 customers globally. And so our share is roughly 60% Europe and 40% US. So that's the way we look on the landscape. What we clearly see is that in the US, there's much more greenfield approaches. So organizations starting enterprise architecture and initiatives to actually become professional in that discipline, versus in Europe, much more organizations have burned their fingers in setting up a project, but never got to a value in their first attempt. So that is what I would clearly say as a difference across the regions, and a difference across the industries. We see a lot of manufacturing, banking organizations fairly advanced in pushing that forward, because for them it's existential that a modern and a future-proof architecture supports their businesses. So there it's clearly more advanced. And also the discussion to actually have the internal IT, so the corporate IT, closer to the product IT. Sometimes organizations call it like IT and OT, so for the operations IT, and for example in banking, so that this convergence is stronger than in other industries. So there I would say there's a difference in the industries. As you can imagine, automotive obviously is a big shift now to make sure that they become software companies in the end. Yeah. So and there obviously you can no longer consider those two worlds as separate. Yeah. But that might be different for other industries still. So I'm happy to learn how some of the participants see that today here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Very helpful. And then let me move the microphone over to Emmanuel and Davor in the back, part of Davor's team, if I'm right. Thank you for joining, Emmanuel. Working for LeanIX. I was a bit stuck with the name because I had CIONET in my, which I think was a spun out. So I had CIONET. I knew I was wrong. So sorry for acting. Does your board agree that you're a technology company?
I think we are nowadays absolutely in that space. So we came from a traditional world of leasing, of fleet management, way back from the 60s. We started in the Netherlands and Belgium as a traditional leasing company. But nowadays, absolutely, we are a technology company. And for us, technology is a key enabler, a key differentiator to acquire, profitability, to acquire growth, and to basically to stay in the business. So absolutely, I would echo that. Yeah.
Cool, nice. So can you kind of take us a bit through kind of introducing LeanIX, what it is, what you do, your function, and also around that big initiative, that project you're running, the next gen digital architecture.
Yeah, that's correct. So, well, my name is Emmanuel Witten. So within LeanIX, I'm responsible for enterprise architecture, EA. And I'm part of the global architecture team of LeanIX Digital, which is led by Davor as head of IT, head of architecture. And as an enterprise architect, I have been involved in LeanIX since 2000, so for 20 years now. So I've seen a lot of changes in LeanIX, a lot of developments. And, you know, in essence, we are a global company. We are active in 40 countries, 40 countries. And we still have local IT organizations per country. But at the same time, in the last decennia, you know, we are converging IT, we are centralizing IT in Amsterdam, and we have a data center in Dublin, and we have also engineering hubs in Dublin, and also in, for example, Romania. So we are building in the last decennia a global IT organization to deliver IT services to all countries. But at the same time, we still also have the local IT organizations. So it's a bit of a hybrid. Now, the NGDA project or program, which is Next Gen Digital Architecture, is a project that has the ambition to transform the entire legacy landscape of LeanIX, a localized legacy landscape, into a truly digital global landscape, you know, that is able to provide digital services at what we call digital cost levels. So our aim is to globally establish standards, product standards, but also process standards, and also to select global applications that are able to, well, to fulfill these products and services, right? While at the same time, we also want to allow for agility or for flexibility. So while we are developing a global landscape, we also want to ensure that for each country and each market, we can still tailorize or, you know, configure, let's say, specific solutions for that market. So there is a constant tension between standardization, you know, application rationalization, of course, to be cost effective, becoming one company with one product, and at the same time also allowing for local variances. Now, to support NGDA, we needed, of course, a solution to plan NGDA, you know, to be in control, basically. And that's why we have adopted in LeanIX a number of methodologies, a number of best practices, to ensure that we as an architectural department, we can, let's say, guide and a bit steer this huge transformation. So that's what I'm doing on an almost daily basis.
Wow. And also for such a long time, you've been with the company, I understand. So for 21 years, application rationalization, does it mean that the number of applications 20 years ago has been drastically going down?
The trend is downwards. It is not as quick as we expect and hoped for, but the trend is absolutely downwards. And what we have done now in LeanIX, we have defined 19, that's 19, domains. And we are now implementing a single application for each domain. So finance, procurement, sales, marketing, you know, commerce, all these domains have been identified. And we have also identified a global solution for each domain. And now we are basically folding in, we talk about folding in the countries into these global apps. We don't call it rollout, we call it fold in. Because what we are doing basically is we establish a global application, and instead of pushing that to the countries, we actually ensure that we can migrate the countries into the global app. And in that way, you know, we are doing that. And the approach is to start with, let's say, supporting applications like finance, like procurement. And then, you know, we go more and more towards the more strategic applications, of course, like in our case, car configuration, you know, quotation management, commerce, and so on.
Do you think your internal client satisfaction has gone up over those years, or?
Well, I don't know the precise scores on the customer satisfaction. I have, but
I mean, your customer. I mean, so your customer. So the customer of the architecture team.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So, well, since we have adopted, for example, LeanIX, and we have also now provided much better insight in our landscape, We get many positive feedbacks from different teams. So in the past, you know, it was always difficult to get an overview of what we have in-house, for example, what we are doing, what we are planning for. And we didn't have a consistent view of the entire landscape, from planned, from go in live, from active, from phased out. And now we are slowly building that insight, let's say. And we see many teams knocking on our doors, you know, to ask for insights. So in that sense, we see a lot of satisfaction. And we are now also better able to do, for example, impact analysis. So now we have better insight, you know. We are also better able to do, for example, what if analysis or scenario analysis, so that we are able to see if we change something in the landscape, what is impacted, which apps are impacted, which infrastructure is impacted, which processes are impacted. So we become now more, how to say this, we as architects, we are now much more engaged, you know, part of the implementation teams than in the past. We have become less ivory tower, I would say.
Ah, yeah, that's an interesting topic which we're going to touch upon later on with Henk as well. And that's also the reason for asking, because I think back from the conversation 20 years ago, then that architecture being the ivory tower and then being enforcing kind of the standards. I mean, understanding also that shadow IT is one of those things that is the good and the bad thing. To what extent was that part of your of this strategy, or wasn't that a big thing? And actually, how have you overcome it?
No, that's a good point. So what we have in LeanPlan, we have a number of teams and they do discovery. So we have tools like Unit 42 and other tools to do automatic discovery. And then basically what we do is we discover items and then we relate those items to the catalog we are building in LeanIX, for example. And if a certain discovered item cannot be classified, you know, it doesn't fit our application portfolio, then we have an internal process to say, hey, let's now investigate. What is it? Who owns it? Why is it here for, you know? And so we are able to detect what we call indeed shadow IT. And if we believe that the item is valid, then we simply update our catalog. We update our application catalog, and then it becomes, let's say, formal. But else we could also decide, for example, to decommission.
Yeah, so, maybe jumping in here, maybe allow me a question, Emmanuel. You just said you actually also call it shadow IT. I'm a big believer that shadow IT is actually a very difficult word because it kind of So for me, if the business buys, for example, software to increase productivity, then first of all, that's a great thing, right? So they're moving it forward. So I really like to call it much more like business managed IT rather than like shadow IT. I don't know what experience you've made, but I have kind of a strong opinion about this topic, and would love to get your view, how you discuss it internally, because shadow IT is always like this, like, okay, there's the IT police is coming up and forbidding everyone to have their proper solutions.
That's a good point. So this is a constant debate in LeanPlan. So we have the NGDA domains and we have the identified NGDA platforms, which are the target platforms. So everything we do in principle is to converge towards the end state. That is the main strategy, you know, becoming a global digital company with a global digital platform where actually all the countries are using the same applications. That is the intent. But at the same time, we are also indeed conscious of, you know, short-term business benefits, or that we want to realize. So, for example, if LeanPlan Italy sees a huge potential for example, SME onboarding, let's say, while we know in our roadmap the relevant NGDA platform will come to Italy in 2023, right, or even later, then surely we allow for temporary solutions. So we have low-code platforms, for example, certain low-code or even zero-code initiatives to tactically allow the countries to build something which has a short-lived lifespan, let's say, to get the ROI, to get the return on investment, and then await the NGDA platform. So these dialogues we have, but now we are empowered also to have these dialogues, because now we see things happening. we have the insight in LeanIX. So we are now, let's say, positioned to really have these dialogues in a proper manner. And in some cases we say, guys, I think it's better to wait. But in many cases we will say, okay, guys, absolutely, let's implement this temporary solution. Let's get the benefits and let's plan for NGDA convergence. And what we then also do, even if we allow them for a temporary solution, what we always do is to discuss with them, what can we do already to converge to the end state? In terms of, process definitions, in terms of business rules, in terms of, let's say, certain front ends or things like that, so that we still are moving into the end state. So yeah, that's what we absolutely do.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Question, and then I would like also to introduce, welcome Henk. One more question on the, I think you mentioned also about interfacing, but more towards user experience. So how do you translate, great user experience into your architecture? How do they relate? How closely are you related to that?
So we make distinctions in various levels of UI. So we have customer-facing UIs or commercial UIs, and they need to be pixel perfect, They need to be really, really cutting edge in terms of experience. We have special design teams. We have front-end engineers and front-end designers that will custom design certain customer-facing UIs, right? That's one segment. But for other segments, which are more transactional tools, more internally oriented, for, let's say, more support functions, we would allow less, less UI requirements. So we have a cascading level of requirements. But yeah, of course, for the customer-facing solutions, we do have dedicated design teams. We do even A/B testing.
But you don't touch that then, in a way. To what extent are you involved from an architecture point of view in those kind of conversation? Or is it more a marketing party?
Okay. Yeah. I see your point. We are not so involved in the actual UI design. We are more involved towards the strategic decision. Are we going for custom UI in this case, or are we accepting the standard UI? And if we go custom, what are the technologies? Are we going for Velocity, for Sidecore? Are we going for Java script or not? More technology directed today, at least.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Great, clear explanation. And meanwhile, the poll has been initiated. It is we got some clear numbers there, and that's a good moment to hand over and introduce Henk Kolk, CEO Architecture Innovation Nationale Nederlander. Henk, welcome. How product-led is Nationale Nederlander these days? Today.
That is a beautiful question. Today. Jeroen, thank you for opening with that. We are moving there, right? So the last couple of years, we did a move to the cloud. We introduced an agile way of working. We did security availability programs. We ran a big program to simplify the applications in the organizations that's still being executed. We integrated a couple of other insurance companies. All of that happening almost at the same time. Last summer, it was time to really think a little bit. If we think we're agile, are we really delivering great value products in the hands of our customers? And we thought that this absolutely needs improvement. So I've been running a digitization program since then. And that means that we are interacting with the business units. Hey, what are the financial products that you deliver? And how will these financial products be expressed in our mobile app, in our broker portals, in our business portals? And how do we organize basically for autonomy here? Because if we want to get speed in the organization, autonomy is a must for us. And then is today a little bit like lots of great cars on a very busy street, everybody's stuck in traffic jam, so we need to unstuck this. And we do that while following an architecture of basically a product hierarchy. So that's happening right now. Jeroen. And that's kind of interesting, because the question that you approached me with was, hey, what is changing in the role of enterprise architect? And I can assure you a little bit that I have become more intertwined with organization and HR today than with applications as such, because everything that you touch, you also touch, hey, how can we make sure that we deliver the right product for the right price? How can we organize for autonomy? How can we ensure that the right skills are in place so that this thing can develop much more autonomously? So that's my job today, Jeroen, in a nutshell.
Wow, so that has been, you've been how long with Nationale Nederland, Henk?
4 years.
For 4 years. So on that autonomy, and when we also had the conversation yesterday preparing for this meeting. So autonomy is a scary thing if you want to rationalize, modernize, streamline, gain value, optimize cost. It's a bit, the average IT corporate / architecture, whatever you call it, gets nervous about it. How do you deal with that?
Well, you appoint an architect with an appetite for risk, Jeroen. No, that was a joke, eh? But
that's in an insurance company.
Interesting. Yeah,
that was posted on the job board. We're looking for architecture with appetite for risk. Welcome to Nationale Nederland.
Yeah, probably not. But look here, everybody is saying they want to be product-led. Everybody is saying they want to be agile. Everybody is saying that they want to be a software company. And I think the evidence is pretty clear that the best software companies organize for autonomy. So if you want to be good or great even, and attract the talent that you think your customers deserve, you must, I think, organize for such an autonomy. And the safeguards that should be in place are not indeed, as Emmanuel described, from an ivory tower anymore. And that takes some getting used to, also for me. I love that tower, man. But
made life easier.
Yeah, that would be very easy.
Made life easier. You had less friends to invite for your birthday party, but life was easier.
Yeah.
Or not.
No, but seriously, we need great product owners, engineers, designers in autonomous teams to make sure that we get speed to market. And that's the kind of company that we're building. And I'm really, really proud of it. For me, that is the definition of product-led and the definition of becoming a software company. And that also means that you have to give away control. But maybe control means a different thing. If you have highly skilled people, it's great to give away some control. Guys, go ahead. You know more about this product, or you know more about this technology stack than I, in my eternal wisdom, which is of course not eternal and not wisdom, can ever know, right? So what is the kind of guardrails that you want to put in place, and where are you hampering the teams? And you have to check your own behavior. At least I do. Jeroen, is that answering your question?
I think that risk. Yeah, but I think that risk point is also is interesting, and having kind of professionals around you. I think probably an insurance company like Nationale Nederland is very risk aware. It's potentially even, you've got to convince the business, if I can use that term, for change or not. I mean, if there's so many people around,
risk is something that you need to balance with skill. There it is.
Yeah.
So, for example, look, if you take a sailboat over the IJsselmeer to the seas, right? And you're at the Waddenzee, and you call the brandaris, and you would call the brandaris, I want to go to Terschelling, which is an island. Is it safe to go there? I can tell you what the answer is that you're going to get. Sir, the wavelength is this high, the depth is this much, and whether it is safe is depending on you and your crew. And there you have it, right? It's all a matter of people and skill. So the better the people, the more you can safeguard their education, their security awareness, but also their skill level, then you can let them go much more. And that is, I think, the key challenge here. So how can you measure a human capability? Where are they on their journey of becoming a great expert in, I don't know, typical risk field or engineering field, right? So make that measurable. So that's what we're trying to do here, because then you can let go much more.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I like the metaphor, by the way. So I to make it clear, the role of that architect. I mean, you've been in this industry for a long time. So has that changed then for you? I mean, the skills. If you talk about skills, the skills of that in that architecture role for you at Nationale, is that changing, or has it changed to be that effective?
I have found myself to become much more an HR specialist. So helping people to reorganize for autonomy, for end-to-end product teams or product domains, making sure that there are good people, good architects, good engineers, good product designers, good product owners, good product managers in those teams, because then we will start to fly. And if you don't, then we will not. So that's one thing that changed. Another thing that changed, I'm happy to tell you, that I've become much more of a preacher than a guy who sets the rules. So drinking lots of coffee, talking to many people. How do you do this? What is the shift that you as a management team have to make? How can we help you? Right. So it is about
preaching skills, basically. Then,
yeah.
What do you preach? What religion do you preach? Preaching change, preaching product, preaching skills.
So one part is the preaching of the why. I would call that preaching. So the world is changing mighty fast. If we want to be a different company in 3 years, then we have to do something now. So I can give you the long story of this, but that is a preach. And then there's also a teach, right? So what do we have to change? So what works? What works in some parts of the companies already, and where can you have a look to see that working? What other colleagues of you can you just go to and ask, hey, how do you make the shift? What is the shift exactly? What did you learn? And the third part is much more about the how, and so enabling them. So as you can imagine, if you want to have teams with high velocity, a lot of things have to be in place. Think about design systems or API portals, or a lot of things really have to work well for those teams. And also making sure that these things work is clearly something that somebody needs to take ownership for. So there you have it. So some is core execution, some is teaching, and some is preaching.
The autonomous is interesting, I think. To what extent are you able to I mean, you're a big company, somehow you also want to keep kind of an overview and manage that autonomous teams in a way. Or do you want to manage it? Have you given up to care?
I love how you struggle with that sentence, Jeroen.
Yeah.
How do you manage an autonomous team? Yeah. So
how can you get grip? Do you want to get grip? That's the question. Do you care?
So what is the grip that you want to have, and what is the grip that you don't want to have? I remember at a different company where I worked that some teams moved to Agile, and they saw that they were really irritating their customers with some feature, and they could fix it in 15 minutes. And the organization, they wanted control, and they needed 3 months with PowerPoints and steering committees to decide that it was okay to fix that thing that irritates the customers. Yeah. Do you want that kind of control, or is that a silly control? So what is control really, right? What are the risks that you want to manage? If a capable team is doing the right thing for customers, and if they're not creating security leaks, which you can test continuously, if they deliver high quality code, which you can test for continuously, right? So what is the real risk that you still have? And you can organize for that. Where do you want to have grip? What I've seen, if you have great engineers, great designers, great architects in a team with a back end and a front end, so no 2 or 3 page layer thingy, but just looking at, hey, how can we optimize this front to back, right? They will get rid of a lot of technology that they no longer like, or that is holding them back, right? If you give them that control. So why would I need to control it then, right? If I see them cleaning up stuff, I don't want to control what people can do themselves. I don't want to interfere where people can do great things. So the question then is, where do you want to interfere, and where really do you want control? And of course, I'm working for an insurance company, so we have to keep promises to customers in 50 years from now, right? So accountants and supervisors in the Netherlands, like the DNB, they want us to be in control. But the very definition of what a control means and how you can make sure that you have enough control instead of wrong controls, that is the key question here. And that means you have to look at it time and time again. So the whole shadow IT thing, if it is valuable for the business, I'm not sure I really want to control it. So the debate now, and I recognize the word that Emmanuel uses, it's debate continuously, and because you're learning from debate or learning from dialogue, is when is something shadow IT, is it unsafe? Or where do we just interfere with people who really want to do their job right? And making sure that people can do their job right is a very important aspect too. So it's a balance.
Yeah, interesting. Andre, do you want to? How do you look at this? How do you see companies even in Germany, perhaps, or globally dealing differently with this? Autonomous versus keeping control. Any insights from your end?
Yeah, I mean, we've probably heard it before. There is obviously no alternative to being autonomous eventually. Yeah, so I think if we look at the talent out there, so for example, I can tell you for our company at LeanIX, we have decided for a new work concept where our employees can actually decide if they work from home or if they come to the office. And I think, so we've taken a very diligent decision to do this, but we believe that in order to attract and retain the best talent, you need to focus more on the outcome, on the products you're building, and on the performance you're delivering, rather than on forcing people to follow certain behaviors. So that's why I mean we see this like within our company. However, we don't have the requirements as many like publicly listed companies have out there. So that's why I think there needs to be a good balance in terms of setting up governance structures and ways to manage the risks and the security topic. So a simple example, what we are engaging in, is obviously the topic around SaaS, software as a service. So everyone can buy SaaS, and I think it's a good thing to do that. However, in these days, it's important to discover this in an efficient way. So as Emmanuel explained it, there's even like a team discovering it. We saw a poll coming through, how do companies deal with the topic? We're from statistics, we know that in the next couple of years, the share of decentrally purchased SaaS will only go up. And so there is no time, or there is no opportunity to say like everything needs to be purchased through one central channel. That's not an option. So the way of supporting this autonomy needs to be incorporated into the way companies are managed. And obviously, like one piece in it is ensuring that the use systems are discovered, that there's technology in place to ensure single sign-on in an efficient way, onboarding of employees as well as offboarding of employees from tools. So I think that this is what we are seeing as an important trend, and maybe tying it back a bit to how we think about enterprise architecture. We have always thought about it as you do not do enterprise architecture with a small group of skilled architects, but you need to be sure that you can roll it out to a large group of employees. And again, here, I believe the critical point is that you actually make this information available and share it in the organization. And only then I think you can build good governance processes in the end, if that visibility is established. So I believe there's no way around managing a good process with the stronger autonomy.
Thanks for adding this to the conversation, Andre. And I think this is also a good moment, also giving time that we're share a bit wider with a larger group in the breakouts. And for that, we have a dilemma, which is basically a follow-up to what we just discussed, I think. So we touched upon. It's about transforming organizations. The question is, how do you engage your teams while complexity keeps on increasing? So lessons learned from the different organizations. So I would like to ask Marita to split those up in groups. The dilemma is also in the chat. Meanwhile, if you have a question when we kind of reconvene in the plenary session again, don't hesitate to ask them or prepare them and share them with me or Marita, or just in general chat. Then I'll look forward to seeing you back again in 15-20 minutes from now. Enjoy your breakout. This is always such a brutal, unfriendly moment. So Harry of ING was still talking about Ron van Kemenade and kind of realignment in the board, and then he was shut down. But I warned you, Harry, that this would happen. Marita is ruthless, but when it comes to keeping us on track and on time.
It's not a problem. Thank you. But what I just want to mention is that Ron van Kemenade said that IT should be represented at the highest level of the organization in 2014. It took the organization until May this year before he became a member on the highest level. So
wow,
IT,
so 5, 6, 7 years later.
Yes, but finally, and I think it's an achievement for what Ron did within ING.
Interesting. So, thank you. I think we had a very lively. We had a lot of content. So let me chew on summarizing it. So as the host, I'll let someone go first. So Johan Herman. Johan, can you go first? Can I ask you to go first? Kind of a summary from your group.
We had a small group. We discussed. First, we needed to understand a little bit of where everybody was coming from. So, how old is the company? Is it a merger? If it is a merger, many systems are still there, or are they already moved to one platform, or these kind of things? Before you dive into the discussion of complexity and transformation. And the second thing we learned is that everybody is still on the move in my group, meaning that understanding the way forward, understanding the need for some sort of rule set, call it enterprise architecture, before you give autonomy to individual and groups. Otherwise, people started creating chaos in a very short term. So, as a prerequisite, we said, okay, enterprise architecture has a new life in the sense of setting the rules in order to be able to give autonomy to groups of people.
Thank you, Johan. Thank you. And Herman, what did your group discuss? And is it in line with what Johan's group discussed as well?
Partly, but our discussion was mainly around complexity and the struggle that basically all organizations have in increasing or trying to decrease or trying to grip or monitor the complexity there is around the IT landscape and processes and whatever you have. and whether it is on a level of data applications or even the organization. And so that was the main part of the discussion. And so we had ideas of how do you organize this? Do you organize it with more or less autonomy? And if you do so, like for example, Leaseplan did, give these people autonomous space for them, but as far as the API allows you, you should feed the API for the central part of the process or the organization. Some people are sitting with a combination of a SaaS environment and a legacy environment, so that's that there's a different angle. We had a drinking water company, so in the middle, and that is also through transformation and the struggle to make it a data-centric company, and where all the organization and especially the whole sector is not up to par at the moment. So and we ended up with the idea, and that is also what Henk already mentioned. You should take people on a journey with you, because if you do so within the organization, and that was what Erik said, take them on a journey, and probably you have the most chance on the most possibility on success. So that was it, more or less. Am I missing something, Manuel, Erik, whatever?
No.
Very well formulated, Herman.
Excellent.
So thank you, Herman. I think from our group, it was interesting. I was thinking this through. We had an Access energy company, OMVZ, and healthcare provider, insurance provider, Randstad, and ING, and it was kind of a bit scattered, the experience, and the direction was also, from Randstad going from decentralized to centralized, and the challenges with that. OMVZ, and also Randstad also having an architecture function for the first time in 2 years, which I found was interesting for 2 years. OMVZ, like that conversation, because also the conversation then moved towards, and that was more the red thread of a conversation about the role of the board. ING was clearly mentioned when we started this plenary session again. One of the questions was how to sell the investment on the foundations rather than just on the client-facing, more on the foundations, and how you could explain it to the board. And I would like to ask Henk to kind of reconfirm, or what kind of summarize what you shared as some suggestions with that respect. I think that's also a good wrap-up potentially also for the conversation we had. Can I?
Sure.
You repeat what you shared?
So yeah, my thoughts on it, which is not the same as the truth or something, but I think that it sounded like some of the architects who do a real great job are compensating really for a lack of skills with the product owner or in the team. So if you have a product owner who knows little about IT, and you have a management team that knows little about IT, then you have these discussions. So my suggestion was, hey, it is all about people. So what are they lacking in skills or experience, and how can you do an intervention on that? The preacher, the teacher, basically also making sure that the foundations are in order and that people recognize what it's going to take. And please let me also still react on what Harry said. So the urgency to do cost exercises is very big in some of the companies. Hey, I'm on mute. No. But then the question is, how are we going to create value? So if the bookkeepers are running the company, how are you going to still create value, right? What is the space that you need to create value, and how do you explain that to each other? And sometimes that is as simple, that was my suggestion, as telling everybody, hey, we need this, period. If we're not going to invest in this, then the result will be probably 1, 2, 3, right? So just take them along and explain, hey, this is how we make a company that is growing smaller instead of bigger. Period.
I like that. I like that. Make a company that grows smaller instead of bigger. Thank you, Henk, also for sharing your insights. And we need to go to the kind of the final part of today's session. 2 more things, actually 3, because you're going to get the survey invitation by Marita. But I would like to thank the panelists for now. So Henk, Emmanuel, Davor, for attending and sharing your insights at Leaseplan and Nationale Nederlanden and during the breakouts. Thank you very much for that. I would like to hand back the microphone to André. I already mentioned at the start, LeanIX as a partner in this event. André, can you, if you're comfortable doing that, give us a quick overview on what your company does and how you could also take the conversation forward if people are interested. I see also Michiel sharing his details there, but perhaps a kind of a final point and also on your company before we go to the virtual reception.
Yeah, sure. I don't want to stand too long between everyone here and the beer, but yeah, maybe just a few words on what LeanIX does. So I think we heard a couple of great arguments on why it's important to establish a collaborative environment for the entire enterprise architecture discussion, and also take it away from just a pure IT-centric view. This was the reason why we started LeanIX 10 years ago. I have a background working for a large company, a logistics company here in Bonn, Deutsche Post DHL, where I've seen what struggles you can have with an enterprise architecture which might be too rigid. So that's why we founded this company and came up with a solution which we sometimes today call the Google Maps for IT. And just to explain you what this is all about. So it consists literally today of 3 components. The core component you see in the middle is our enterprise architecture product. It actually helps companies to manage their transformation and risk of their IT landscape. So it's both, it's understanding where are spots to improve the landscape, for example, technology risks, so life cycles, but also where, from a business perspective, should be an investment into leveling up the architecture. And we've seen in the poll earlier that many of you are concerned with the topic, how do I move from a legacy IT landscape into more, how do I modernize this? So this is one of the key use cases which we support with our enterprise architecture suite. Over the years, we've seen there's an increasing need to manage the SaaS, which is more and more adopted in large enterprises and cloud native companies. So that's why we've launched a product called SaaS Intelligence, which helps companies to optimize the cost and productivity of their SaaS subscriptions. On the other hand side, we've seen with the shift that many organizations now build digital products and teams who are developing those products in-house, it becomes increasingly difficult to keep track of all the services, sometimes microservices they're building, the low-code, no-code developments, or the bots they are using from RPA solutions. So with the solution we're calling Microservice Intelligence, we're providing them insights into more the product, the development path in the organizations. All the 3 products work together seamlessly. So the data from SaaS Intelligence and Microservice Intelligence is floating also into the enterprise architecture suite, but they can also be used in a standalone fashion. Just to very quickly focus on the topic of enterprise architecture here, LeanIX has always been started with the intention to come up with a very pragmatic and lean data model, which still covers all the layers in architecture. So it goes all the way from strategy and transformation over business architecture to the application and data architecture down to the technical architecture. But the key idea is to have a data model which is comprehensive enough to then come up with outcomes such as goals and roadmaps, views such as business capability and application heat maps, data flows more on the on the application level or technology lifecycle roadmaps to manage the technology risk. So that hopefully gives a quick intro into like what we do as a company. Our products can be evaluated because they are all software as a service in an easy fashion. So Michiel, who is in the call here, can also serve as a direct contact person to reach out in case you're interested to learn more. But I'd like to say thank you on behalf of like the LeanIX team for the great discussion you have provided here, for Emmanuel and the others sharing some insights. So I think it's great to get the community back together, although of course this is just virtual. So I believe the exchange is really valuable. So thank you a lot from our end at LeanIX.